Welcome to another Saturday of the Master Relationship Mechanic Show. I am Courtney Lee Smith, your host, and I'm excited. We are in a new month of May, and we are talking about mental health. A lot of people don't understand that mental health is a real thing. It is something that's going on. And today, I'm excited to talk about anxiety. I'm talking about stress. What are those indicators? And we have an anxiety expert, psychotherapist Belinda. She will be coming to us from London. So we have a wonderful international perspective to show on our show, and she has some great insight to anxiety and some tips and some indicators and some stressors that will let us know we don't have to be anxious for anything. Isn't that what the words say? Philippians 4:6, be anxious for nothing. And she's going to give us some tools to put in our toolbox so we can walk away and implement some of those things so we can have our best relationship with God, self, and others, and have our mind so we can stay stayed on Jesus. So let's have our clip. 2 minutes, 2 seconds. We'll be back with you and have our wonderful guest on the screen with us.
Hello, Courtney. Thank you so much for inviting me on your fabulous show. I love it. So I think what you're doing is absolutely great.
I am just so excited to have you. As we were talking behind the scenes before we went live, it is wonderful that you were able to join us. And I would really want to hear, how did you become a psychotherapist? Why is that your lane? And specifically, why did you become an expert on anxiety?
Okay. First of all, I am honored to be here, and it's great going live with you. So, it's funny because after speaking to several others, people that are in therapy and coaches, I've learned that nearly everyone has an interesting backstory. And mine, like so many I hear about, comes from starting at a place of trauma, sadly, because I spent a lot of my childhood years with this thought and idea, yes, one day I'm going to heal the world and I'm going to love everyone and all of that. And as time went by, it was later at university I decided that I'm going to study psychology, but I didn't pursue it. And it wasn't until I spiraled in stress and anxiety myself. And I went on that journey, the fertility journey, IVF journey, like a lot of people talk about the pressure and fertility treatment can have on individuals. I was one of those individuals. And even when you think you're strong enough to get through, and during the process, you have to be strong, it's not until later that you realize that there's so many challenges and hardships. And I kind of fell into becoming a therapist through this journey because I couldn't understand the psychology of it. I couldn't understand the pain of it. It was after my third miscarriage, which was at a later stage, and after my life-threatening surgery and my husband left me, that I realized that I need help. I need mental help and emotional support. And no one was there to give it to me. And I realized I had to mend those broken pieces because no one was going to do it for me. So I realized that we all have our own journey in life. And even though I split up from my husband at the time and I was left in this dark place, it wasn't until I connected with myself, confronted those inner villains within me, that I was able to find a way to heal. And I healed through meditation, spending time with those who do love and care for me, and slowly learned to be my own best friend and put everything that I've preached to others into practice. And I didn't blame myself especially for losing my child and my twins. I learned and I realized that I need to explore this wonderful mind that we have. So I looked into neuroplasticity and psychotherapy, and I started my practice. And interestingly, I met amazing people like yourself as well, who are from all walks of life. And Serene Lifestyles, the psychotherapy practice, was founded, and now I work online and on set with some incredible people.
That's fabulous. And when you were talking, I heard some really key things on the do you think anxiety comes from maybe us blaming ourselves, or us being ashamed of our situations?
I don't think it's coming directly from those places. I think it's, you see, it's such a broad question. It's open to everyone, and it's such an open question because everybody processes anxiety and stress differently. And I think the most important thing here is to understand what is stress, what
Okay.
is anxiety, and know that they are both a part of life. They are very natural. Stress and anxiety are a result of the chemicals and hormones one
Okay.
has within them, and one that you might have heard of yourself, cortisol, that surges through your body. And it's these brain chemicals, which most refer to as hormones, that surge through our body, and they're the things that impact us differently. And these hormones make people react to it differently. So, and that triggers the reaction overtly to people. Like some people break out in sweat, breathe
Mm,
quickly, are tense, their muscles get tense, their body prepares them to take actions. And some people aren't even familiar to this because it alarms them, and their system becomes, they get into that fight or flight response.
mm,
When that is activated, we instinctively want to protect ourselves. But if you're not familiar with what stress and anxiety is, which I can go on to explain even further, stress is an experience when you feel so much pressure or you feel threatened by something. And many people say they are stressed when they have a lot of pressure at work and they feel they cannot meet the demands of a job, or they can't keep up with their targets. And some have financial health stress, and so on. So, Courtney, this usually happens when we are in a situation that we don't feel we can manage or control. And I know during my IVF journey, I felt totally out of control.
hmm
I didn't feel I could manage anything because it was something that was scientific, something that I thought should have been a natural process that turned into something quite researched and
Yeah.
methodical. And, you know, it's hard to define how we respond. Everybody responds differently.
So
And
do you believe that everybody has some level of anxiety and stress, and some of us just mask it and we're not really dealing with the response and reaction of it in a healthy way?
well, it again depends because anxiety, on the other hand, from stress is a very common problem.
Okay.
A lot of people feel anxiety, but they might not consciously be aware of it. Okay,
Okay.
so anxiety is managed by learning how to recognize and cope with anxious thoughts. It's a it's a feeling of worry or unease, and we all know so many of us feel these emotions, and sometimes very unexpectedly. So everyone feels anxious at some point.
Okay.
So these feelings are usually short-lived and don't affect day-to-day life. But it is common. Yes, it is very common. Anxiety can only becomes a problem when it starts to affect your health and your enjoyment of life. And um, it, it's linked to feelings of stress and depression or low mood, as well as your mental well-being. So anxiety can affect physical symptoms as well, like fatigue and sleep and appetite. Some people feel the urge to go to the toilet a lot more. So going back to the impact stress and anxiety have on a person's mental health comes down to this, knowing what it is that you're experiencing. What is it that you're experiencing? Understand yourself and your body enough to know that you are feeling uneasy.
And I like you said, yes, anxiety is normal. I think we have placed so many things in society. Oh, well, we're never supposed to be anxious. And then that makes you anxious when you get anxious because you're like, I'm not supposed to be afraid. I'm not supposed to be anxious. I'm not supposed to worry. You know, we have all of these things. And then we like, oh my goodness, I'm slipping into this place. Why? What is wrong with me? But I mean, the thing is, we all, like you say, we all have those thoughts. Now the key is, how long do we stay there? What are the keys? Is it causing physical damage to ourselves, like you say, or is it causing depression? Or are we slipping into a real mental place where we can't get out of that? So what are some of those things that you can give us as indicators to help us from slipping into a permanent state of anxiety? Or there are some people who are just very anxious. What are some steps? Like, they're anxious about giving a speech, they're anxious about just being around people in public. You know, what are some of those things that you can give to help us calm ourselves down?
So, again, understanding stresses and anxieties, you've got to understand there's different types of stresses
Okay.
and anxieties, as you mentioned, in life, and people are not often consciously aware. Again, I've come across people that are stressed, but they don't know they're stressed, but it's coming out in their body physically. It's coming out in their body. They're feeling a lot more tired, fatigue, or there's people that are anxious and it's coming out in a rash and they don't know they're anxious. So there are different symptoms, different types of anxiety and stress. But when something does not feel right, it usually means it's not right.
Okay.
For instance, I had a client who spent most of her years worrying about health, and she was constantly living in this fear. And you can imagine during the pandemic, her symptoms heightened, and she became quite OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. A sneeze to her meant that she had a disease, and her fear made her feel worse. And as she became quite stressed about what she was seeing on the news, she was having sleepless nights due to the stress of not knowing, the uncertainty of whether she was going to see her family or whether she herself was going to survive. And living alone added to all those issues of worry that she became quite anxious and depressed. But it was not until she realized herself that her feelings and behaviors were not of the norm that she reached out to me. And that's when we were able to explore her past behaviors and how, if she did not know there was a pandemic, how she would have behaved and dealt with the issues herself. So, but through cognitive behavioral therapy and self reflective therapy, we were able to explore that she was repeating patterns of behavior she learned through her youth.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother was a hypochondriac. She was diagnosed with hypochondria. And this is an illness, it's known as illness anxiety disorder. So hypochondriacs experience extreme anxiety from bodily responses most people take for granted. For example, they may be convinced that something as simple as a headache is a sign of a terminal illness or tumor. And experts don't know why some people develop illness anxiety disorder. However, studies in psychology are discovering that people more prone to illness anxiety disorder if um, if there's a family member or a history or childhood trauma, such as child abuse or neglect or extreme stress or health anxieties or other health stress disorders in the family exist, even mental health issues such as depression or physical or emotional abuse have taken place, it usually impacts a person later in life. And when this client found out, oh, yeah, I can see those familiar patterns, and they are transgenerational patterns that are taking place in my life now, and it's been heightened by what I'm watching on the news, of course, I can recognize what I'm doing, how I'm behaving isn't me. So the importance is to know yourself, and the impact of those thoughts of something may have on one's mental health can be very harmful if you don't address it. So it's really important that you know yourself well enough to identify the stress or the anxiety. What emotions are you feeling? Be able to identify that. Can you recognize you don't feel the same? Are you going to the toilet a lot more? Are you having physical symptoms? You know, jot those thoughts and ideas that you're having or experiencing down. Do you feel more nervous? Recognize it within yourself. Write down what your triggers are, those nervous tendencies. Think about how your habits have changed. Perhaps you're sleeping a lot more or you're not sleeping at all. It's
Mhm.
important that you familiarize yourself with what it is that may be possibly causing an inner fear within you. Once you can identify those triggers, those symptoms, and or even habits from within, then you can explore how this makes you feel, what it makes you feel, allow yourself to feel.
Yeah.
And secret is to healing is to understand yourself. No one can help you unless you are able to describe what it is that you need help in. And
Yes.
sadly, um, I'm sure you've come across this yourself with people that you speak to, both on the show and otherwise. Sadly, some people spiral into low moods or depression because they can't understand it, because they feel exhausted, they feel lost, they feel emotionally and mentally and physically their energy is just complete. They have no energy. They can't explore what they are feeling. And I'm not saying it's too late. Even if you recognize that part of yourself, it's never too late to change. Okay?
Yes.
And seek professional help.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I've experienced people who spiral. I have experienced people who just like to be on the cycle as well. You know,
Mm.
they like that cycle of ups and downs and lows and highs instead of just finding that place of peace. Um, and when you were talking about the anxiety and the stress, like the behaviors of it, we have so many people who don't get help because they're afraid of being labeled something. They don't want to be labeled something because they feel like it's going to. But the thing is, they don't realize that label is between them and their therapist or their psychotherapist or their counselor or their coach. It's not something that they have to wear across their head or a shirt that says I am this. The label just means these are something that we can uncover the root of what the real issue is. And a lot of people like to analyze one feeling and make it across the board for everybody. And I like that you answered the question. Anxiety and stress is different for everybody. Everybody has different emotions, everybody has different root issues. Like the client that you gave as an example, we all have something from our childhood. If we're very honest with ourselves, it has become a part of our value system, it's become a part of our habits, and it's just something that we do, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We have to really analyze those behaviors, like you said, because your client, she might not have been as bad if COVID hadn't come, but
Mm.
any life stressor that was going on, it was sending her to a level that really wasn't normal and good for her health. So
Yeah.
a lot of the things that are going on inside of our body, they are triggered by our mind, like you were saying about, the different chemicals our mind produce and how they react to our body. So if people are trying to figure out, okay, well, what does this have to do with best relationship? This is your best relationship with yourself. If you can't get your mind together, you're
Yeah.
always going to have division between all of your relationships. Like you said, until you recognize that you needed help. And that's what we have to realize, that each and every one of us need help in different areas of our lives. We will lose people. We will distance ourselves from people, call ourselves protecting ourselves, and all we're really doing is hurting ourselves and becoming more and more isolated, because people think that we have problems, and we have problems. But you have to find people who say, okay, you got a problem, I'm willing to work with you through this place. Because the beautiful thing you said, you had people who loved you even going through that community. So I think that was very key on the journey, that you don't have to do it alone. You do
No.
need to really be honest and transparent on the journey, because that was something that I love that you said. Really understand how you feel. And I believe a lot of people aren't really honest about how they feel in a situation, because we spend so much time trying to make other people feel good in a situation, that we just be saying, yes, this situation, I'm comfortable with it, I'm okay with it, these things, until we realize we could keep ourselves in a very uncomfortable position for way too long. So I know you have a lot of great things coming up.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
a lot of great things coming up. And I do want us to be able to support you and share with you and show up for you. Even though you're not here in the States, the wonderful thing about this virtual space, we can show up in London in a virtual space. And if you let us know early enough, we'll show up so we can physically come hug you if you got something going on in London. So I know you got an opportunity for us to support you.
Oh,
And I will be blasting it all over social media for us to do that.
thank you. That's great. But before I go on to explain what those exciting things
Okay.
are, I must give you, your audience, some advice. You
Okay.
see, I think it's so important that we all become very self aware and self accepting. When you are self accepting of yourself and everything you feel, and learn to be empathetic and compassionate to yourself, you treat yourself the way you would want to treat a good friend.
Yes.
So it's really important to pause and pay attention to what is around you and give gratitude, because living in gratitude, there's nothing more important than experiencing your environment and those people that are precious to you right now. So I want to end on that note, but to let you all know as well that it will be wonderful to get your support. I have been nominated, to my surprise, with quite a few things, and the first one is the UK Health Radio Show have nominated me as a very impactful psychotherapy practice, and Global Woman have also nominated me as for the Inspirational Award, which I was really chuffed about, because I do a lot of voluntary work and I literally save lives. So it was such an honor to get those nominations. And recently I have started writing a non-fiction book. I write anyway, I write articles and ebooks. And I've just written a non-fiction book called Fix Me. It's hopefully ready to be published very soon. It'd be lovely to get the audience to support me with that as well. I'm so grateful to you, Courtney. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I promised we were going to be out here, because you all know how we always show up and push through for our audience. And she's struggling with a little sore throat. So I wanted to make sure we're not, stressing her voice any more than we need to. So you all be thankful whether you watch it in the live or the replay. Definitely comment back some of the things that you got out of it. And right there in that last part, I think what people need to do, like you said, is self-awareness. A lot of us are not self-aware of what is going on right now, the people we need to love on right now. And when we do that, we can recognize how we want other people to treat us and how we need to treat them. So I think that was really great what you gave us there in the end. And I hope everybody walks away with that, because that will absolutely bless us on our journey. If you can just stop a moment before you ever have a response and reaction, and you are self-aware of what's going on, it can change something from going down a negative spiral very quickly. So I think that is very great. And definitely I am going to be putting your link out there so we can vote for you. And we're excited because we're going to share your book. And it's funny that it's called Fix Me. Earlier today, 6 o'clock this morning, I did a workshop called the Restoration Project, because
Yeah.
God told me to do something about fixing the vehicle. So I'm excited about that book. You know, it's just kind of like that confirmation. God was already preparing me for what you were going to offer, that tool for other people. So it
Oh,
was just like aligning with the spirit and the openness that he had already given me into today. So that is so wonderful. Make sure, I know it's in the description, you all, but you know, they say all of us don't like to read. So maybe if you hear it, you'll just go there. So give us your website and where we can find you.
I definitely will do that. I will definitely do that. I think it's also important, as you went to this workshop this morning, to have that mindful living in practice. There's so many tools and techniques out there that people can, take reference from, whether it's online or in person now. So it's great. It's great that you're doing that too and practicing it within your lifestyle.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to tell you all, we're going to say goodbye and thank you all for joining us here on the Master Relationship
Thank you.
Mechanic Show with our wonderful guest from the UK, bringing us about psychotherapy, but definitely the anxiety and stress which affects our mentalness, so we can have our best relationship with God, self, and others, you
Yeah.
all. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next Saturday, same time, same place, and still in the month of dealing with our mental health. So whatever your mind stays on is where you are leading. So this time we don't want to keep your mind in a place of anxiousness and keep your mind in a place of stress. So you all reach out, definitely jump in the description, go to her website, see how you can connect to her blog, see how you can connect to all of the articles that she's already written, and definitely go out and vote for her, because she does have impact globally, and she is out here influencing and impacting people in a positive way. So I thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, see you all same time, same place next week.